Welcome, everyone. I'm Reverend Carol, and I'll be bringing you this Sunday's story. And the name of the story is In My Father's House. And it's about searching for understanding. Miss Tessa last week introduced you to the new unit we'll be studying through July and most of August. And it's about understanding, really about understanding God. And you'll be hearing stories, we'll be reading stories about Jesus and the wisdom teachings of Jesus and that are found in the Bible. The Bible can help us find answers to questions, especially about questions about what does God mean to me and how does God work? And so the Bible is a way to find some answers, but it also helps us ask questions as we search for understanding. Reading about how Jesus lived and the things that he taught can help us on our own journey of understanding. So that's what our next couple of weeks you'll be hearing about a lot of Jesus, the stories that Jesus told and about his life. Before we get started, let's begin with our affirmation for this unit. Now, what I would like for you to do is pretend you're in the Sunday school classroom and that you're standing in a circle with everyone else, your YFM teachers, and with a strong voice, I'm going to ask you to repeat the affirmation after me. Okay, are you ready? All right, here it goes. As I ask questions and try to understand, my heart and my mind stay open. Did you use your strong voice? Okay. Now I'm going to ask you to have a seat on the floor and imagine that we're still in that circle. And a little softer this time, we're going to do the affirmation. As I ask questions and try to understand, my heart and my mind stay open. Very good. Now, for this last time, I'm going to ask that you close your eyes and we're going to whisper the affirmation this time. As I ask questions and try to understand, my heart and my mind stay open. Wonderful. All right, you can open your eyes now. So let's get to the story about Jesus, and it's called In My Father's House. Let me find the story. And by the way, the scenery behind me is of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a very old city. It's more than 3,000 years old, and that's where our story takes place today. Jesus was growing up. His mother Mary couldn't help thinking that there wouldn't be many more Passover journeys together. Passover was a time of a remembrance and celebration of the Jewish people who were freed from slavery in Egypt. Every year, Jesus and his parents joined other families and friends and traveled several days to the city of Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. The adults enjoyed the chance to see old friends and express their gratitude to God. And the children enjoyed the adventure of seeing the city and being away from home. Mary watched Jesus with his friends. He was 12 years old, and he looked more like a young man than a child. The other young men liked him, but Jesus didn't seem to have the same interests they did. During the journey, he was kind and playful with the little ones, keeping them out of mischief. And he would help drive the carts or laugh with the old men. Sometimes he would walk alone, deep in thought as he gazed up to the hills in the distance. After days in the crowded city, Mary was happy to begin the journey home. Jesus helped Joseph and the other men pack up. The large group left early, just as the sun was peeking over the hills. The women walked together, sharing stories and watching the little children as they left the city behind. And the men did the heavier work and talked among themselves about the blessings of the Passover. The road was crowded with people heading back to their villages. They walked all day to get ahead of the crowds. The sun was setting by this time, and so they stopped to camp for the night. Mary and the woman were very busy preparing food for their hungry families, while the men cared for the animals and put up sleeping tents. Jesus didn't show up at their fire for dinner, but Mary assumed he was eating with his friends and didn't get concerned until the campsite was quiet. Jesus should have been back with his parents. His friends were asleep. Mary asked Joseph to look for him outside the camp. Perhaps he was off by himself and didn't realize how late it was. The moon was high by the time Mary accepted the truth. Jesus was not with the caravan. No one had seen him since they left the city. She tried to stay calm as they waited for the sun to rise so they could head back and look for him. He would have been alone in the city for 2 days. What would he do when he realized they had left him behind? Mary and Joseph spoke little on their hurried trip back to Jerusalem. They talked about where to look for Jesus when they got there, and they prayed for his safety. They didn't stop to eat or rest. Mary held Joseph's strong hand as they walked. When they got close to the city gates, they looked at every face, hoping to see Jesus. But night had come again, and they had little chance of finding him in the darkness. In the morning, the anxious parents revisited every place they had been during their stay. The city was still crowded with Passover pilgrims, and they asked busy shopkeepers and even the street beggars if they had seen a young boy alone, but no one was able to help them. Mary and Joseph finally entered the temple, continuing their search for Jesus, who had now been missing for 3 days. Joseph and Mary approached a group of men who didn't look up as they continued their earnest discussion of the scripture and the laws. One man would ask a question, and one of the teachers would answer, followed by debate and more questions. Then one voice spoke out clearly and confidently, full of wisdom, and all the others were silent with amazement. Mary's heart leaped for joy as she recognized the voice of Jesus. He was seated among the teachers and students. It wasn't clear to Mary whether he was teaching or whether he was being taught. She didn't really care. She was just relieved to find him safe. And then with her relief came 3 days of frustration and anxiety. He didn't seem concerned at all about the trouble he had caused. Mary didn't hesitate, although Jesus caught her own arm and tried to warn her that women shouldn't interrupt the all male discussion. Well, she walked right through that crowd of men to stand in front of Jesus and ask quietly, but with deep feeling, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." Jesus noticed her for the first time. The other men were silent as he answered, "Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know I must be in my father's house?" He seemed puzzled by her distress. Mary didn't know how to respond to this. Why was he calling this his father's house? Did he expect them to just leave him there? She looked at Joseph helplessly, and they both waited for Jesus to lead the group of scholars and join them. She noticed how they spoke to him as an equal rather than a boy. Mary and Joseph kept Jesus close to them as they left the crowded city and walked toward Nazareth in the sunshine. As they left the city walls far behind and the rolling hills stretched out before them, the family relaxed and talked about what they could do when they reached home. Mary was happy to hear Jesus laugh and to have him near. So, why do you think Jesus uh, stayed behind in the temple? Hmm. What do you think Joseph may have said to Jesus as they walked home? Do you think reading stories about Jesus in the Bible is helpful for people who are trying to understand more about God? Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed the story today. We're going to have lots more about Jesus the next couple of weeks. Until then, we miss you and we can't wait till we can see you again. That may take some time for us to all safely meet together. Until then, know that we love you, we bless you, and we behold the Christ in you. Until next time.